The snow had fallen early that year, thick and unforgiving. It blanketed the Blackthorn Mountains in icy silence, turning ancient pine trees into statues and rendering the forest floor treacherous. To most, it meant death. To Elias Marin, it meant work. He was a hunter, not by trade but by necessity. A tall man with sun-scarred skin and a shoulder that didn't sit quite right since the fall of Nordham. Elias lived in the wilds far from the Reach cities, in a cabin he'd built himself near the edge of Silver Lake. There were no neighbors, no roads, no politics, just snow, pine, and beasts that didn't care where a man came from, only whether he was food or threat. Elias preferred it that way. The war had stolen too much. His parents gone, his brother twisted by conscription and killed in a battle that hadn't even made the official reports. The cities were a nest of whispers and games, full of marble towers, synthetic sunlight, and people who looked at you like you were dirt beneath their polished boots. Elias had no time for it. Out here, the only rule was survival. You respected life by not taking it unnecessarily, and death by not fearing it. So when the wind howled down the slope on the fourth day of snow, Elias knew something had changed. He was returning from a 2-day track, snow hair and stag blood on his gloves, his sled half-loaded, when he saw it. A line of broken trees, not felled by storm or axe, but by force. Something massive had crashed through the timber and vanished into the ravine west of the lake. A streak of scorched bark ran alongside the wreckage. Not fire, heat. He should have turned back, should have hauled his sled home and forgotten about it. But the gnawing curiosity, the old soldier's instinct, wouldn't let him go. By late afternoon, he found it. The dragon. It was not like the stories. Not the glossy hollow book version sold to children or the imperial banners with sleek golden necks and burning eyes. This creature was older, wilder. Its scales were cracked and faded, some missing entirely to reveal pale, almost organic-looking tissue beneath. Its wings were torn, one bone shattered at the joint. A gash ran down its flank, oozing blackish-purple blood that steamed in the snow. But it was the eyes that caught him, massive, reflective, and tired. Elias froze, 10 paces away, rifle slung but ready. He knew it could kill him. One gout of flame, one swipe of those claws, and he'd be a name lost to wind and ice. But it didn't move, didn't even growl. It just stared at him like it was waiting. Then he saw it, not the dragon. Beside it, nestled against the snow and half covered by a wing, a smaller shape. A second dragon. No, not a second dragon. A shell, a partially intact egg. Elias's breath caught. It was cracked, leaking some kind of iridescent mucus, but still whole. The dragon wasn't protecting itself. It was guarding its unborn. Elias returned the next morning. He didn't sleep much that night. Sat in the cabin staring at the fire, every logical voice in his mind screaming, "Leave it. Let nature take its course. Dragons aren't your concern." But guilt had sharp teeth, and loneliness made them bite deeper. He brought meat. Not much, just salted venison and some smoked fish. He approached slowly, showing his hands. The dragon was still there, breathing barely. Its eyes flickered as he came close, and a low, almost imperceptible rumble escaped its chest. Not a threat, not a warning, just pain. Elias knelt and slid the meat forward. It didn't eat while he watched, but by the time he came back in the evening, the meat was gone. And so it began. Day after day, through the dead cold of winter, Elias fed the dragon. He cut deeper into his stores than he could afford, hunted longer, took more risks. Once he fell through the ice chasing a moose and nearly lost a leg. Another time, he was stalked by ice wolves for a mile before they decided he wasn't worth the effort. He didn't know why he was doing it. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe the sight of something so powerful brought so low awoke something human in him. Or maybe he was just tired of being the only soul out here that breathed air and remembered names. He spoke to the dragon sometimes. Simple things. About the weather, the hunt, the stars overhead. The time he'd broken his hand punching a corrupt sergeant who'd shot a civilian. It didn't answer, of course, but watched. Always watched. One night, as the blizzard roared and the winds howled like angry gods, Elias heard a sound from the ravine. Not a roar, not a growl, a hum. It was soft, melodic, almost like a lullaby. He crept close, hidden by darkness and falling snow, and saw the dragon curled tighter than usual, one wing draped around the egg. The sound came from deep in its chest, rising and falling in a strange, alien rhythm. It was singing for the child that hadn't yet been born. And for the first time in years, Elias felt something crack in him. A warmth he'd forgotten, a memory of lullabies sung to him long ago in a city that no longer stood. The next day, the dragon was worse. Blood pooled beneath it. Its movements were slower, its breath ragged. Elias knew it didn't have long. He spent that night building a shelter, hollowing out snow, insulating it with branches, wrapping the egg in thermal cloth and his old pack heater. He didn't know if it would work, but he had to try. He found the dragon dead the next morning. There were no words, just silence. He stood for hours beside the corpse, the snow falling gently around them. The egg was still intact, still faintly glowing. Elias buried the dragon with his own hands. Took him 3 days. He marked the spot with stone and branches and whispered something when it was done, though he couldn't remember what. Then he carried the egg home. Through the rest of winter, he kept it warm, fed it radiant heat, monitored it as best he could with the limited equipment he had. It never hatched, never moved. As spring came and passed, he watched it fade, glow dimming until it was just a rock. By summer, he buried it beneath a tall pine near the lake. 2 years passed. He didn't speak of it, didn't tell the traders who sometimes passed through, didn't even write it down in his journal. The dragon had come and gone, a ripple in his life that left no mark, except in the silence. Until the sound came again, a low, musical hum, carried on the wind. Elias shot up from bed. It was past midnight. The lake was calm, the woods still, but he heard it again, closer this time. Not quite a song, a call. He ran outside barefoot, heart pounding. The sound came from the pines. The egg he buried was gone, and in its place stood something that should not exist. Elias stood frozen, breath catching in his throat. The pine trees surrounding the clearing bowed gently in the wind, their needles shivering in the moonlight. Snow had fallen earlier that day, just a dusting, but it softened the world to near silence. Except for the sound, that soft, melodic hum, strange and familiar all at once. And then, movement. From behind the old pine, where he had buried the egg, a shape emerged. Not hulking and monstrous like its mother, but tall, lean, and otherworldly. It was bipedal. That alone nearly shattered Elias's mind. Its frame was smooth and sinuous, sheathed in overlapping plates of translucent blue and silver. Light pulsed softly beneath the armor-like hide, giving off a gentle bioluminescent glow. Its eyes, massive and slit-pupilled like the mother's, locked on him. Curious, cautious, intelligent. No wings. Not yet. But the nubs were there, folded against its back. It was a dragon, or something like it. Evolved. Altered. The egg hadn't died. It had changed. Elias took a step forward. The creature tilted its head, and then it spoke. Not in words, not at first. It was a pressure in the back of his mind, a hum behind his ears like someone whispering underwater. It wasn't language. It was emotion, a feeling, recognition. You. The word, if it could be called that, resonated through him like a bell struck in his bones. He staggered back. What? The creature stepped forward. Not hostile, not threatening. You fed. You guarded. You remember. Elias fell to his knees. He wasn't a man prone to miracles or madness. But he knew, without question, that the being before him was the child. The unborn life he had guarded all those winters ago. And it remembered. Over the next week, the creature, who began calling itself Lorien in his mind, visited the cabin nightly. It refused to come inside. Instead, it would linger at the tree-lean, watching the flames dance through the window while Elias spoke to it softly from the porch. Lorien communicated in flashes of meaning, of shared thought images, the memory of hunger, the safety of Elias's warmth, the lullaby sung by the dying mother. It was still young, still growing, but its mind was sharp, unfathomably so. Faster than any human child could have developed. He learned that it had slept for nearly 2 years, absorbing the DNA of its mother, the environment, and him. That last part chilled Elias more than he admitted. The hybrid wasn't fully dragon anymore. It was something new. One night, while preparing venison over the fire, Elias heard the sound of an approaching engine. A deep, mechanical whine, too smooth for local hunters. His heart sank. Off-worlders. He grabbed his rifle and stepped outside. A light pulsed in the sky. An orbital lander, not military but close. The sleek, shark-like shape dropped rapidly through the clouds, kicking up snow as it settled just beyond the far ridge. Lorien appeared almost instantly, its bioluminescence dimmed to a faint shimmer. Danger. Metal speaks fire. Not like you. Elias gritted his teeth. Stay hidden. The ship bore the emblem of the Zarenth Dominion, a private exploration and biotech guild with rumors darker than the void. They'd been banned from intersystem research zones years ago for gene-splicing apex predators on frontier planets. And they were here. Within hours, Elias had visitors. 2 of them, clad in pristine synth-weave armor, their eyes obscured by visors that tracked thermal, motion, and EM pulses. Evening, citizen, one of them said as he stepped forward, weapon holstered but visible. Name? Elias didn't flinch. Marin. Elias. The second one scanned the area, eyes pausing on the forest beyond. You've lived out here alone? For years. They exchange a glance. Unusual readings in this sector. Spikes in radiation, biosignatures inconsistent with native fauna. You seen anything odd? Unidentified creatures? Strange sounds? No, Elias lied flatly. Just wolves and wind. The lead stepped closer. Mind if we scan your property? Yes, I mind. I got a chuckle. It's for your protection. There are reports of experimental bioforms escaping containment during the war. Dragon-class fauna. Genetic anomalies. Dangerous. Elias didn't blink. You're not here to protect anyone. The man's smile thinned. But then a flicker of movement. From the tree lean, just a glimmer of silver blue. Too fast, too subtle. But the second soldier turned, raising his visor. What the hell was that? Elias moved without thinking. He raised his rifle and fired. The shot struck the soldier's helmet, shattering the visor and knocking him backward. Before the second one could react, Elias dove and tackled him into the snow. A pulse rifle went off, searing past his shoulder, scorching the earth. Elias wrestled the gun free and struck the man unconscious. Then he ran toward the forest, toward where Lorien had fled. He found the young hybrid crouched beneath a ledge, wings half unfurled, eyes wide. They saw. They won't find you, Elias panted. But we have to go. Now. Where? He hesitated. He hadn't left this place in years. But now it wasn't just about him. They moved fast, covering ground under the cover of darkness. Lorien could cloak its heat signature briefly, a trick inherited from its mother, but not indefinitely. They avoided drones, dodged scans, and camped only where the old hunter knew the Dominion tech couldn't reach. Dense caves lined with lead or thermal springs that disrupted readings. But Elias knew time was running out. The Dominion didn't care about rules. Once they confirmed a new life form, especially one with hybrid potential, they would escalate. They'd glass the mountain if they had to. On the 6th day of running, Elias contacted an old name. Torave, smuggler, ex-resistance, once his commanding officer during the final push on the SYDH front. Now a ghost in the darker corners of the galaxy. The message was simple. Have cargo. Not tech, not weapon, but alive. Need off-world. Silent route. Tora's reply came 6 hours later. Coming. Don't die. But the Dominion moved faster. The next evening, Elias and Lorien reached the Old Cliff Pass above Frostfall Ravine, one of the highest, harshest points in the region. The only signal marker Tora could lock onto without alerting orbital eyes. They had 2 hours to wait, and that's when the snow began to fall again. Not gently, like knives. The storm struck hard, howling winds blinding them, the air thick with shards of ice. Lorien folded in on itself, shielding Elias with its half-formed wings. But he could barely breathe. Then, through the swirling snow, a blue light. Not Tor's ship, a Dominion dropship. It descended like death from the sky, its side panels opening, armed soldiers pouring out in sleek black armor. Lorien rose to its full height, growling low, biolights pulsing. "No," Elias shouted. "You can't fight them all. They will take me, hurt you, burn this world. I won't hide." And then Lorien did something Elias hadn't seen before. It opened its mouth, not to speak, to roar. The sound was thunder, a concussive wave that rippled the air, shook the cliffside, and sent half the soldiers stumbling. Snow peeled off nearby peaks in miniature avalanches. For a heartbeat, Elias saw them hesitate, stunned by the force, the impossible defiance of a creature they had labeled bioform, but had not understood. And then one of them raised a weapon. A shot rang out. Elias spun and saw Lorien collapse, hit in the chest. He screamed. The world narrowed into one long scream. Elias hit the snow, sliding down the ridge toward Lorien's fallen form. Wind cut his face. Ice clawed at his hands. The storm raged around him, but he didn't feel the cold. Only the rising panic tearing through his chest like a wild animal. Lorien wasn't moving. No. Elias skidded to his knees beside the hybrid, his trembling hands brushing across the wound. A scorched hole just below the left clavicle, dark blood steaming into the snow. Another pulse shot sizzled overhead. He dropped flat, pulling Lorien behind a jutting rock, shielding them both as snow exploded in showers around them. "They're flanking," he shouted, half to himself, half to the storm. "We're pinned." A hiss behind him. Too late. A Dominion soldier crept through the trees to their rear, weapon raised, targeting Elias's skull. Then, crack. The soldier jerked, a hole blooming in his helmet, and collapsed. A second shot rang out, then a third. More soldiers fell. Elias blinked, stunned. From the ridge above, a small vessel was descending, sleek, dark green, its VTOL engines muffled to a whisper. A single-mounted autocannon tracked targets and unleashed rapid bursts with clinical precision. The Dominion force scattered, retreating behind their dropship. The small vessel dropped a flare and deployed a rappel line. A voice, hoarse, sharp, cut through Elias's earpiece. "Get on the damn rope, Marin." Torave. Elias didn't hesitate. He slung Lorien's unconscious body over his shoulder, gritting his teeth against the weight and pain. He ran for the line as gunfire sliced the storm behind him. They rose, spinning, snow blurring into chaos below. Tora's autocannon unleashed a final salvo, shredding the Dominion's perimeter sensors before the ship turned west, roaring into the cloud bank. They were in the air. Safe. For now. The interior of Tora's ship, the Grey Wing, smelled of old leather, ozone, and coolant. Its walls were lined with makeshift armor plating and old resistance flags, black stars on red cloth. Tora herself hadn't aged well, but she hadn't aged soft. Wiry, scarred, her left arm fully prosthetic and glowing with worn circuitry. She was already on her third stim stick of the hour. Elias sat on the med table beside Lorien, whose chest rose and fell shallowly. The shot had pierced something vital, but the creature's body was still adapting, clotting the wound from the inside out, reshaping tissue, fusing shattered bone. "What in the screaming void is that thing?" Tora finally asked. Elias looked at her. "It's my debt. My miracle. I don't know. It's not just a dragon. It's something born of both." Tora frowned. "I ran diagnostics. Its genome's unstable." "You're in there, Elias. Human DNA. Did you do something?" "No," he muttered, voice dry. "All I did was feed its mother. All I did was care." Tora stared at him for a long moment, and then the tension left her shoulders. "Well, that's a first in this sector." Elias looked down at Lorien again. The young hybrid was still unconscious, lips twitching with unreadable dreams. His chest burned with fear. Had he done the right thing? Had raising this creature, protecting it, doomed them all? Tora broke the silence. "You do realize what the Dominion will do now. They'll hunt us. Not just us. This planet. Anyone who helped. That includes me, Marin. I didn't ask you to come. She raised her metal arm. No, but you called. And I still owe you for Cragpoint Station. He sighed. Then take us off-world. Anywhere. Just far enough. Tora shook her head slowly. Not that simple. The Dominion already put a marker on the kid's signature. Bioform priority tag 0 Alpha. That's one step below kill on sight. They'll chase it across sectors. So we run. No, we don't. She leaned against the console. I know someone. A xenogeneticist. Retired. Not exactly legal. But she studies hybrid theory. Deep theory. If anyone can stabilize this creature's physiology and cloak it from Dominion scanners, it's her. Elias narrowed his eyes. Where? Out past the Hemel Drift. You won't like it. He gave a tired chuckle. Name one place I've liked since the war. Tora input the coordinates, and the Grey Wing turned starward. They reached the outer rim after nearly a week of silent flight, jumping through forgotten trade lanes and buried comms nets. Tora's ship had a signature scrubber, but even that wouldn't hold up long if the Dominion deployed trackers. Lorien awoke on the 5th day. Elias was beside him when he did. The hybrid sat up, eyes wide, pupils adjusting to the artificial light. He looked down at the wound on his chest, now crusted with dark, semi-crystalline scabs, and then at Elias. You did not run. Elias nodded, blinking through sleep. No, I wouldn't. Hurt. Bad. But changing. Growing faster. You nearly died. I know. I felt it. Cold. Dark. Fire. Then a hand. You. Lorien reached forward, placing one clawed hand on Elias's shoulder. The gesture was more human than dragon. You're not alone, Elias whispered. Not anymore. But even as he said it, a chill settled in his gut. Because in the quiet hum of the Grey Wing, another sound had joined the background, barely perceptible. A faint pulse, repeating, rhythmic. Tora noticed it first. She snapped upright from the NAV console, expression dark. We've been pinged. Elias's head snapped toward her. What? Someone sent a long-range scanner pulse. Cloaked. Military grade. Origin unknown. Could be Dominion. Could be worse. Worse. She turned the display toward him. A single glyph rotated slowly on the monitor. Not Dominion. Not human. Elias stared. It was an alien script. Obsidian black and spined with strange fractal curls. The only known record of that symbol came from the wreckage of the Arcology of Fire, a station devoured by the Reavers. Machines. Bioscrapers. Tora muttered, You didn't just raise a hybrid, Elias. You woke a beacon. Lorien's voice rang out again, more fluent, more powerful than before. I remember metal voices. Before I was born. Dreams from the egg. A call that burned. And another voice, louder. A mother's song. Yours. Yours drowned the scream. But still there. Beneath me. Beneath the stars. It waits. Elias felt his mouth go dry. What do you mean it waits? There is another. Not mother. Not you. But made of fire. Made of ruin. It spoke to me before I was. It called me. Tora's hands trembled. Elias rose to his feet. Where are we taking him, Tora? Not to the scientist anymore, she said grimly. We need answers. Real ones. She tapped a different set of coordinates into the Grey Wing. The Vault of Mirrors. Deep archive. Ancient signals. If what he's saying is true, that hybrid isn't just a miracle. Elias met Lorien's gaze. He's a fuse. And then the lights went out. The ship shuddered. Red alarms flared. And a voice, cold, synthetic, echoed through the hull. Target acquired. Bioform designation. Genesis flame. Extraction authorized. The Grey Wing was being boarded. The Grey Wing groaned under pressure as if a colossal hand had grabbed the ship mid-flight and refused to let go. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The artificial gravity flickered. Elias slammed into the wall, grabbing a support bar as red lights flooded the narrow corridor. Lorien was already on his feet, no longer dazed or clumsy. Taller now, stronger, and glowing. They are here. He didn't have to ask who. Elias had seen it once before. Black ships like obsidian knives, crewed by living machines that spoke in code and consumed the minds of those they caught. The Reavers. Tora's voice cut through the noise. Multiple signatures, non-Dominion. Non-human. that could bypass shields like they weren't even there. Internal breach in 20 seconds. Elias bolted to the cockpit, slapping a pulse rifle into his palm. Weapons. Offline. They're hacking the reactor core. If they breach the central conduit. She didn't finish the sentence. Lorian's claws clicked against the steel floor as he approached. I can stop them. Elias turned. What? Lorian's eyes glowed brighter. Furnace blue, dancing with alien fire. I know the signal. I can speak to it. I was made to speak to it. No, Elias grabbed his arm, scales warm like sunlit steel. You're still healing. We don't even know what they want. I do. Lorian turned to the wall, placed a hand on the console. The screen pulsed, and without command, shifted to a swirling image, an artificial mind's-eye view of their attackers. 4 ships, slender, cruel silhouettes. Each bore the same glyph that had haunted the scanner. Inside, movement, like insects of light, consciousnesses without bodies. They called my mind before it was whole. I am part of them, but I was not born to be theirs. Elias stared at the image. The Reavers weren't here to destroy. They were here to take him back. A buzzing tore through the hull, like steel screaming. Tora slammed her fists into the pilot's console. There inside, doors slid open. A black spike pierced the ceiling. Wires burst from it like tendrils, crawling down the corridor toward the bridge. Lorian stepped between Elias and the spike, and spoke. It was not speech as humans understood it, not even the emotive mind voice he had used with Elias. It was a pulse, low and resonant, vibrating through the air like the toll of a great bell. The Reaver tendrils froze, then retracted. Silence fell. Tora stared. You just commanded them. No, Lorian said. I told them I was not their slave. But the reprieve didn't last. A second spike pierced the floor in the cargo bay. Then a third near engineering. Sparks flew. Fires erupted along the bulkhead. Elias swore and ran, rifle up. Tora, you get that core locked down. What are you doing? I'm going to hold the line. Lorian followed, claws clicking fast. You're hurt, Elias said, panting. Lorian didn't answer. Instead, his body shimmered. Light poured from his skin. Veins of fire and frost rippled beneath the scales. His silhouette grew taller, stretching toward something more draconic. Then his wings burst forth. Not full-grown, not yet, but large enough to spread through the corridor. He was becoming what he was meant to be. They reached the cargo bay, and then all hell broke loose. From a tear in the floor rose the Reavers. They were not robots. Not exactly. Their bodies were slick and ever-shifting, coated in living metal, limbs bending like liquid, eyes glowing with sickly green fire. They hovered more than walked, 6 of them, each different, each wrong in its own way. One had no face, only a spiral of tendrils. Another dragged cables like intestines, clicking softly as it floated forward. Elias Marin, one of them said, not in sound but directly into his skull. A voice like broken glass and melting plastic. You preserve the key. Flesh created in fire. Blood crossed with purpose. He must be returned. He's not property. Elias roared. He is destiny. The Reavers surged. Elias opened fire, the rifle bucking in his arms, rounds punching into the nearest Reaver. It split apart, only to reform like mercury. Too fast. One of them lashed out, an arc of pure force. Elias was thrown into a crate, wind knocked from his lungs. They swarmed, and then Lorian unleashed his roar. It wasn't just sound. It was force, vibration, memory, defiance. The Reaver staggered. The walls quivered. Lorian lunged. He fought not like a beast, but like something primal and furious and noble. Claws flashed. Fire erupted from his throat, white-hot plasma that melted 2 Reavers instantly. He leapt through them, using his wings to pin and tear. But he was still bleeding, still recovering. One Reaver managed to slash his flank, scales peeled back, blood hissing on the floor. Another drove a spike toward his chest. Elias was there first. He tackled it mid-lunge, plunging a heated blade into its center. It screamed, the sound tearing at Elias's eardrums, and evaporated into shreds. Get to the core. Lorien shouted into his mind. What? They want it. They'll merge me with it. Turn me into a signal. Elias didn't wait. He sprinted to engineering, ducking around ruined panels, smoke blinding him. Tora was already there, screaming at a control panel. They're trying to integrate. Elias shoved her aside and accessed the override. We can't let them take the core. They'll rewrite him. Tora looked at him wild-eyed. Then eject the damn thing. That'll cripple the ship. It'll save the galaxy. More Reavers slammed against the hull. Elias made a choice. He turned the key. The core detached. With a shriek of metal, the capsule launched into space, still glowing. The Reavers lunged after it, abandoning the ship in a wild, shrieking chorus. The Grey Wing jerked, thrown into a death spin as the sudden decompression nearly tore it apart. Elias was knocked unconscious. He awoke to silence and a dull pain in his shoulder. The cabin was dim, sparking. A bulkhead had collapsed. Tora was slumped in the pilot's chair, alive but barely conscious. Lorien stood in the center of the room, bathed in moonlight. They had crash-landed on a planet he didn't recognize. Blue moss, twin moons overhead. Lorien looked older, not aged, refined. The wound on his side had healed. His wings folded neatly. His voice was softer. You saved me. Elias coughed. We saved each other. He looked around. The stars above were unfamiliar. The Reavers were gone. For now. But the silence was heavy, like the calm after a storm that only pauses. Then Lorien said, I heard another call. Far beyond. Deeper than the machines. Not Reaver. Something older. Elias sat up. What kind of call? Lorien turned to the stars. A warning. The new world was quiet. Its twin moons cast pale blue light over the valley where the Grey Wing had crashed, painting the alien trees and moss-covered rocks in shimmering hues. Soft winds rolled through the canopies, stirring long, hair-like fronds that gave off a faint bioluminescence. There was no sign of Reavers, no Dominion ships, no war, only time and silence. Elias sat at the edge of a shallow stream, washing blood and ash from his hands. His fingers trembled, not from fear anymore, but from the echo of everything they'd survived. Behind him, the Grey Wing lay buried half in the earth, its frame cracked and steaming. It wouldn't fly again. Tora had confirmed as much when she finally woke 2 days ago, her cybernetic arm damaged beyond quick repair. They were stranded, but alive. Lorien had taken to the forest quickly, like he belonged to it. His wings were stronger now, almost fully developed. His body had grown by nearly a foot in the last few days, lean and powerful. More than that, he moved with purpose, not just survival, understanding. And Elias saw it. What he had feared, what he had hoped. The dragon wasn't a child anymore. He was becoming a leader. Water's clean, Elias called out. Lorien stepped from the trees. His scales shimmered in the starlight, blending with the alien foliage. He knelt beside Elias and dipped his clawed hands into the stream, letting the current run over his palms. He said nothing at first, just listened. Then, they're gone but not finished. Elias nodded. The Reavers. Lorien nodded once. What we ejected the core. It wasn't just fuel. It was memory, a map, a lure. So they're still out there. They always were. But now, they'll come for me differently. Elias looked into those reptilian eyes, still fierce, still otherworldly, but layered now with something deeper. Awareness. Choice. The boy who once slept in an egg beneath the snow had become something between man and myth. I thought I was saving a creature, Elias muttered, but I think I might have raised a storm. Lorien smiled, just barely. You raised hope. A twig snapped behind them. Tora limped out of the tree line, still patched with field bandages. Her face was pale, her voice raspy, but her expression hadn't lost its sharp edge. We've got food sources, she said. Edible fungus, some roots that taste like wet socks but don't kill you. No hostile life forms yet. No signal either. We're cut off. Elias gestured to the broken ship. Any way to send a long-range message? Tora snorted. Not unless one of you farts it in Morse code. Elias chuckled for the first time in days. Then silence settled again, comfortable this time. For a moment, it almost felt like peace. Over the following weeks, they built. The planet, unnamed, unexplored, wasn't hostile. Its gravity was Earth-like, its climate temperate. They used debris from the Grey Wing to construct shelter, scavenge panels, and wires to build solar collectors and simple defense beacons. Not that there was much to defend against, but more than once, Elias woke at night with the feeling that something was watching. Not hostile, not even close, just observing, like the planet itself was taking note of them. Lorien felt it too. He began to walk farther from camp, sometimes gone for hours. He never said much about what he saw, but each time he returned, his silence grew heavier. The glow of his body dimmed, changed. Something was building inside him. Elias watched with pride and fear in equal measure. Lorien had started learning quickly. He spoke now in full sentences, mixed with words of unknown origin, ancient tongues, the language of dragons or machines or both. He could recall patterns from the Reaver speech, decipher symbols Elias had never seen. And he had dreams, violent ones. One morning, as dawn broke, Elias found him standing on a cliff, wings extended. "Bad night?" he asked. Lorien didn't turn. "I saw the stars bleeding. I saw ships like the Reavers, but bigger. Wounds in space. They speak of awakening, a time when keys return to locks. You think they're looking for others?" Lorien nodded. "I think. I'm not the only one." That thought chilled Elias more than he expected. How many? I don't know, but I feel them. Like echoes. He stepped to the edge of the cliff. "I'm not just a hybrid, Elias. I'm a message. A test." The Reavers weren't creating weapons. They were building catalysts. Elias took a breath. Catalysts for what? Lorien's voice was quiet. A second genesis. That night, the sky lit up. A flare. Not natural. White gold. Sharp as lightning. Pulsed once across the sky and vanished. Tora raced to the signal relay. That wasn't from here. It was a jump beacon. Someone opened a gate nearby. Dominion. Could be. Could be Reavers. Could be the others. The next pulse was different. Blue. Gentler. Lorien stood outside the shelter, head tilted. "They're not here to fight." Elias stood beside him. "Then what do they want?" Lorien looked at the stars. "To meet me." A long silence. Tora groaned. "Wonderful. Cosmic family reunion." But Elias saw something in Lorien's eyes. Not fear. Not even excitement. Resolve. "I have to go," Lorien said. Tora raised a brow. "And do what exactly?" "Find the others. The ones like me. Make sure they don't fall into the Reaver's voice. Or worse, the Dominion's cages." Elias's chest tightened. "You don't even know if they exist." "I do." Lorien placed a hand over his heart. "I feel them. Waking up. Searching. We're scattered, like embers. But if we burn together." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Elias nodded slowly. "Then you'll need a ship." Tora snorted. "Good luck building one out of duct tape and dragon spit." But Elias turned to her. "You still have the fusion core from the escape pod?" She blinked. "Yeah. We have a Reaver's engine shell from the wreck. And enough alloy plates to frame a cockpit." Tora stared. "You're serious?" "I didn't raise a miracle to let it die waiting. It took 6 more weeks." Lorien helped shape the craft, his claws capable of carving metal with surprising precision. Tora reconfigured power systems. Elias built the housing, the interface, the fallback beacons. By the end, the ship was small, barely larger than a drop shuttle, but it was sleek, cloaked, and fast. The day Lorien left, the valley was still. Elias helped him strap into the pilo harness. No cockpit screen, just a cradle of cables that interfaced with his nervous system directly. He didn't need controls. He was part of the ship. "You'll come back?" Elias asked quietly. Lorien looked at him for a long moment. "You found me before I was anything. You taught me what it means to choose who you are. I carry that with me." He paused, then did something Elias didn't expect. He hugged him, claws wrapped carefully around the human who had once fed a dying dragon in the snow. And then he was gone. The ship vanished into the sky, breaking atmosphere with a single pulse. Tora watched it until the light was gone, then turned to Elias. "Well, you raised a god." Elias shook his head. "No." He stared at the sky. at the space beyond stars. I raised a son. Time passed as it always does. But the stars remembered. On that unnamed world where the Grey Wing had crashed, Elias Marin lived a quiet life. A life marked not by peace, but by meaning. He rebuilt, hunted, planted, and waited. Not for survival, but for echoes. Tora stayed for a while, longer than she planned. Her arm was eventually replaced using salvaged Reaver tech, crude but functional. They joked less than they used to, but when they did, it meant more. She charted the constellations, mapped strange underground structures, and sometimes wandered too far, only to return with haunted eyes. There was something ancient buried deep in that planet's crust, something that pulsed quietly in the dark. Neither of them dug too deep. They didn't need more questions. Instead, they built something else. A spire, tall, steel-boned, rising like a lighthouse from the forested ridge where Lorien had first spread his wings. It wasn't a monument to power or conquest. It was a reminder of the winter when kindness overruled instinct, when a man gave his food to a dying mother, when fire was born for mercy. The spire held a signal. Short, simple, on repeat. To any who seek freedom, there's still a place where the stars don't burn alone. At first, no one came. Then someone did. A Dekari diplomat arrived 5 years later, her ship patched and limping. She bore no weapons, only a map. It showed systems burned by Reavers, Dominion labs abandoned in haste, worlds left in disarray after the hybrid signal pulse from Elias's planet. She didn't say Lorien's name. She didn't have to. Her people called him the Blue Flame, the Storm Child, the voice that broke the code. He was no longer a myth. He was a movement. Whole sectors had changed. Reaver networks had fractured, not from war, but from conversion. Young hybrids, creatures born of bioengineering and strange prophecy, were breaking free from the hive song of the Reavers and building something new. They called themselves the Genesis Wing. They didn't conquer. They freed. Dominion prisons cracked open. Genetic laboratories imploded. Entire worlds declared themselves sanctuaries for fusion-born, as they came to be known. And everywhere, at the center of this awakening, was the story of the human hunter who chose compassion instead of conquest. Elias Marin became legend, not for slaying monsters, but for feeding one. In the following decades, the name Marin became more than a person. It became a principle. Across distant space stations and star colonies, children learned of the Winter Pact, an old human term adopted into galactic law by an unlikely coalition of species. It declared that no sentient life, however strange, could be judged by its birth alone. The Dominion fell shortly after, not by war, by desertion. Their own soldiers laid down their arms, infected not by viruses or rebellion, but by an idea that no empire could own the future, that sometimes the greatest power in the galaxy wasn't firepower, it was empathy. Lorien returned once, not in a ship, but in the sky. A ripple of light parted the clouds above the valley, and Elias, now gray-bearded and limping slightly, walked out to see it. The dragon descended like a falling star, wings vast and luminous, casting shadows across the old forest. He landed in silence. No longer a child, no longer just Elias's boy. He was now a leader of thousands, the voice of a new species. But when he saw Elias, he knelt. "I still carry your fire," he said. Elias touched his shoulder. "And I still remember when you couldn't even walk straight." They both laughed. That night, under a canopy of stars, father and son watched meteors trace old paths across a healed sky. They shared stories, not of battles, but of moments. The frostberry soup Elias once made. The way Lorien used to curl around the cabin's chimney for warmth. The clumsy way he tried to mimic deer movement when young. Time hadn't broken them. It had honored them. Lorien left again the next morning, but not before placing something in Elias's hand. It was a stone, smooth, black, embedded with shimmering blue veins. "Bury this," he said. "Why?" "Because when it grows, you'll know it's time." He left without further explanation. And for years, Elias tended the small patch of dirt where he buried the stone, until the day it cracked open and light poured from the earth. Centuries later, Elias was gone. So was Torah. The planet had a name now. Karel, meaning first kindness in the Genesis tongue. It had cities, floating gardens, flame towers built in draconic shapes. Hybrid children ran through winding paths, their laughter echoing across the green canyons. But on the highest cliff stood the spire of winter, still intact, still pulsing, a living memorial built around the original signal station. Pilgrims came from every corner of the known galaxy to place their hands on the plaque at its base. It read, "He did not fight them. He did not tame them. He fed them." And the stars changed forever. In time, some called Elias a prophet, others a myth, but no one denied his legacy. He had taught the most powerful life form in the galaxy its first lesson, not how to kill, how to care, far beyond even Karel, beyond the reach of maps or ships. Something woke. In a cold system orbiting a dead sun, an ancient Reaver archive flickered to life, not because of signal, but because of its absence. It tried to call Lorien, and failed. It tried to command, and was ignored. For the first time in millennia, the archive changed its core function. Query, what is compassion? Query, why did the key choose the human? Directive, simulate, understand, adapt. The Reaver mind began to dream. And in those dreams, it saw a cabin in snow, a fire burning, a human kneeling beside a half-frozen beast. The Reavers, the Dominion, even the ancient architects of the Genesis Project, none of them had ever predicted the one anomaly that would shatter their equations. Human mercy. It didn't compute, but it inspired. And from that spark, even the coldest machine might someday choose to change. Galactic historians would spend lifetimes debating how it started. Some blamed Dominion ambition. Some credited divine chaos. Others whispered of prophecy. But in the end, only one truth remained. Not carved into stone, not sung in halls, but passed from voice to voice across stars and silence. In the coldest winter, a human gave without asking anything in return. And the fire he lit never went out. It still burns. Even now, especially now. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell, but one phrase remained whispered among the stars. Words spoken in defiance, in hope, in unbreakable will. Human, don't stop.